What's up, guys? Welcome to the Peer Review Podcast. My name is Kaleb Davis, and today I'm going solo. Unfortunately, Brett had some scheduling conflicts. He had some RA duties he had to attend to, so nothing serious, but he couldn't make it today. So, like I mentioned, I'm riding solo today. But just to start us off today, we're trying to introduce a new segment. And the biggest thing for us has been that consistency piece, figuring out dates and specific times that we want to put things out. So we decided with Monday, this is kind of going to be an ongoing segment that you can expect for the foreseeable future. Essentially, we're just gonna go around the league and both sides, so the NBA and NFL, and talk about whatever topics we kind of want. So we have complete creative freedom, and we're just kind of gonna bounce around the league and give our opinions on some hot takes going on, trending topics, trending teams, good or bad, some of our key players, and just things that kind of interest us. As you may or may not know, I am a big LeBron fan. I'm a big Heat fan, and I'm a big Pistons fan. So expect to hear a lot about those teams as a whole. I cover a lot of their games, specifically talking about the NBA. I watch almost every single Heat, Laker, Pistons game. So I'm pretty knowledgeable to an extent on those three teams. So those are my three focal points. But yeah, without further ado, for us getting started today, I have a couple topics that I prepare for us that I kind of just wanted to touch on. So for starters, the Pistons are currently sitting at fifth in the East right now with a 7-8 record, and as a Pistons fan, as a Detroit fan, as a Michigan sports fan, it's been so exciting. We have the Lions doing really well. The Tigers had a successful season. Just we hadn't seen in a while, and then now we have the Pistons on the up and up. And I know it's early in the season. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it's pretty refreshing to see. And then moving forward, the Rockets, another unexpected team for some, are currently sitting at 10-4 in the jam-packed West. So very, very exciting for them. Then we're going to move on to the Lakers and a little bit of LeBron talk. He recently recorded 4 straight triple doubles, and I kind of want to give my opinion and my thoughts on that, and also the how AD's been playing and D'Lo's moved to the bench, and whether or not I think that this play and how things have been going for them is pretty sustainable. And then we're gonna end off with a more fun segment, a little more lighthearted. The Bucks have been struggling bad this season, and you keep seeing all these rumors and reports about Giannis moving around potentially. So I just kind of wanted to paint the picture for a few different teams and kind of showcase what this would look like if he were to be moved and kind of my thoughts on how it would play out. So I'm going to start with the Pistons. Like I mentioned earlier, they're sitting at a 7-8 record in the Eastern Conference, and they're fifth in the East. And I know we talked about them a little bit in our last video, but they've won a couple more games since then. I think they've played the most games out of any team in the NBA so far this season. I think they're at about 15 or 7 plus 8. Yeah, they're at about 15 games. And they're playing right now against the Rockets, and they're currently losing. So Bulls, excuse me, and they're currently losing. So record may dip a little. They may drop out of fifth, but I think the story of this team this year has been Cade Cunningham and his elevation into, I don't want to say he's not at superstardom yet, but he has that potential written all over him. He's been much improved in almost every aspect of the game this season. I think he's been a better scorer. He's been a better leader. He's been a better playmaker, rebounder, defender, all of the above. And I alluded to a lot of this in our last segment, but it's just nice to finally have a star in Detroit, a young star. Like in the past, in my experience, like we've had Blake Griffin as he was aging. We had Drummond. I wouldn't consider him a star, but he was our franchise player for the time being that he was here. We've had, Greg Monroe, Brandon Jen. We haven't, but since my time really watching the NBA, we haven't had much. We haven't had a star, like especially of Cade's caliber and a guy that you can actually, stamp as our franchise player. So it's been very nice to see. Um, and not just Cade though as a whole. Like obviously he is spearheading this run that we've been on, the Pistons as a whole, but the team around him, like this offseason, I can't emphasize it enough. We did such a great job putting guys around Cade and Jaden Ivey and Duran that kind of helped to maximize their skill sets. They needed spacing. That was something we talked about so much. Everyone around the league, all talking heads, media, everyone talked about when you were talking about the Pistons, they were bad. Yes. but it's also they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league, and they've remedied this situation. They brought in guys like Tim Hardaway, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and you can see their effects. Like, they have helped us win multiple games already this season. And I guess the one, we keep mentioning this, but the one hindrance, I guess, in K's game is he turns the ball over so much. But that's something you grow and develop with, and that's just something he's going to continue to have to work on. But I cut him a little bit of slack because when you have the ball as much as he does and his usage rate, like it, you understand it. You don't love it, but you tolerate it because of his production on the other end, well, just on both sides of the court and all that he is asked to do on a game-to-game basis. But I just want to throw out his stats to kind of paint the picture of how good he's been this season. He's had multiple triple doubles this season. I think he's had about 5 or 6. It's been a bunch, but this season he's averaging 23.1 points, so about 23 points, 7.3 rebounds, 8.7 assists, a steal, and a block a game. So not only is he scoring, rebounding, playmaking, but he's also defending, which has been kind of a not a revelation because he was never a bad defender, but I didn't realize how, like, what it just shows. It unlocks another level that he can reach as a two-way player, which just the whole perspective around the Pistons and how our team looks right now, and especially when we get Asar back, like, I'm excited for this team, and I'm going to continue to highlight that throughout the season because we're finally good, and I want to give them their flowers because they definitely deserve it. But moving forward, like I mentioned, the Rockets are 10-4 right now as it currently stands, and they are currently sitting at third in the West, which is pretty significant if you look at the amount of talent that there is in the Western Conference. Like, all the way up to the 11th seed, there's above 500 teams, while in the East, like, I think it's the top 3. Yes, the top 3 teams are above 500. So there's a big talent discrepancy right now in both of the conferences. And for the Rockets, a super young team, to be winning the way they are, it's impressive. And I just want to break down why and some things I've noticed as far as like watching their games and kind of why they've been winning. The biggest thing for them this season has been their increase in fast break opportunities and just pushing the pace and trying to get out in transition, because they have a focal point Jokic-esque baby Jokic center in Sengun, who's a great playmaker, great rebounder, and obviously he's not running the floor, but they have athletes. Like, they got guys like Jalen Green, they got Amen Thompson, they got Tari Eason, like they got Jabari Smith. You go down their roster, they have fast, young, athletic guys, and it's been translating. Especially those 3 guys in general, because they play the bulk a lot of the minutes, but that's been their thing, getting out in transition, increasing their fast break scoring, pushing the pace. And their kind of calling card this year, which was to be expected, was their rebounding and defense. They're the third best. They have the third best defensive rating in the league, and they're first in rebounds per game, as it currently stands at 8:30 p.m. today, at 50.7 rebounds per game. And then they're also third in opponent points per game, so at 106.1, which essentially means that on average their opponents are scoring 106.1 or less per game. So very, very impressive numbers. And again, some names that you can attribute to this end of the floor: Amen, Tari, and Jabari. Like, those 3, it's such an athletic pairing, and they just have so many athletes on their roster that it just makes things work. And they're doing all of this despite the fact that Jalen Green has not been shooting the ball well this season. He's averaging around 17 points. He's shooting 39% from the field and 32.5% from 3, which you'd hope to see a leap from him, kind of similar to Cade, because, they came in, same draft class, not same expectations, but, around the same age, same timeline. So if you're a Rockets fan, you're kind of hoping for a little bit more out of him, but that just leaves optimism for you, because if he finally gets it together and starts turning it around and takes that, because the season just started, like I keep mentioning, he might go through a mid-season leap. It's a godsend for the Rockets moving forward, and they look like they have a really, really good young core. And we're going to touch on them a little bit later when we get to the Giannis trade rumors and skepticism around that. But they are looking like a team on the up and up, and in the near future, because they have assets as well, I expect for them to be making a move that to kind of push them a little further. Now, this is years down the line, a year or two down the line, but I expect them to be pretty active in star hunting in the near future because they're getting to that point where they're about ready to start taking that turn into winning again. Next on our list of topics is kind of the Lakers. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big LeBron fan. I follow them religiously through the wins and the losses. And since LeBron has been with the Lakers, outside of that championship bubble year, his tenure has been very up and down. And I don't attribute this to him at all. As age continues to creep up on him, it just doesn't seem to affect him. He just recorded 4 straight triple doubles. I'm going to read off the stat lines. They were against the Sixers, the Raptors, the Grizzlies, and then the Spurs. So back to back games. And then I'm just going to go down the line. I'll read his points, rebounds, assists. He had 21 points, 19 points, 35 points, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 10 rebounds, 12 again, 16. And then assists, 13 assists, 16 assists, 14 assists, 12 assists. So these aren't small triple-double games. These are monster games that he's having at his age. And it's just so impressive. And I don't think people, you read comments, I still feel like people are taking him for granted. Like what he's doing at this age, playing the minutes that he's playing, carrying the load that he's carrying, even though it's less in this season, it's still so impressive. And it's sad to think that in a year or two, like the guy we all grew up watching is going to be out of the league. And that's kind of why I tune in to all these games, because you never know when he's going to decide to call it quits. And I'm trying to appreciate it while I still can. But the Lakers are 9-4 on the season. And the JJ Redick experience so far, bringing him in has been amazing for this team. Ever since they started off the year a little shaky, like they started off really hot, and then they went on a losing streak when they went on the road. And since then, the Lakers moved D'Lo to the bench, and they're 5-0 since then. And it worked out a lot better than I thought. Because obviously the Lakers, they needed bench scoring. Like guys like Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Max Christie, they were not providing anything at all. Like the Lakers were 30th in bench production. So moving a guy like D'Lo, who it puts the ball in his hands a little more, which will help him in the long run. I think it's a good move, and it's shown. They're 5-0 since then. But I missed out on doing this in our last video, the last time I talked about the Lakers. But I want to give a huge shout out to Anthony Davis. He has been amazing this season. He's averaging 31.1 points per game. So that's second in the league right now. He's shooting the highest field goal percentage of his career at 56.1%. And he's shooting 42.9% from three on 2.3 attempts per game, which is smaller volume, but he hasn't been shooting threes like in the past few seasons. So it's super impressive and super. I'm just happy to see it that he's attempting them and he's making them. And he's been especially good in the clutch. He's been shooting a lot of threes. Like he'll be a trailer and come up at the top of the key, or in that pick and pop. But he's been loving like the left wing, right wing, top of the key. He's been efficient. And if this carries on, the ceiling for the Lakers raises. It raises exponentially. And I want to emphasize his scoring, because this season he's just taken another leap. Like I think this is the best he's played in his career. He's had 20 plus in all 12 of the games he's played in this season, and in 8 out of the 12 he's had 30 plus points with a 40-point game in there, and he's shooting 65% true shooting percentage. So for those of you who don't know, a true shooting percentage is it's a player's scores by combined. It scores a player's types of shots. So it combines all types of shots. So regular field goals, like a layup, a dunk, 3-pointers, free throws, and it averages all them up and spits out a percentage. And above 50% is pretty good league-wide, and then 60% plus is elite. And he's at 65%, one of the best true shooting percentages in the league. And that's just insane if you think about the amount of responsibility he has on offense and defense, like fatigue. Just the ball is always in his hands this season, and he's been producing, and rightfully so. He's at the top portion of the MVP conversation, and if this continues all season, I think his name should definitely be in that conversation. But you can't talk about it enough how good he's been for the Lakers. And as a LeBron fan, like I always want to see LeBron in the playoffs. I always want to see him, especially towards the later portions of his career. It's been so refreshing to finally get a coach who is utilizing the team correctly. And one thing that I like that JJ Redick has been doing versus how Darvin Ham used LeBron, he stopped. Like, one, LeBron doesn't even bring the ball up court majority of the time, so that conserves energy. But he also has been using LeBron similar to how they used him in the Olympics, just sort of as a point forward. Not sort of. He has been like a point forward. They're utilizing his brains and his playmaking and his passing instead of making him use his body and his. He's old. Like, those hits start to add up. He's just been using his brain more, and you can see that he's averaging 9.2 assists. He's third in the league right now in assists, and I think with this iteration of LeBron, like in this phase of his career, this is the best way to use him. You know, save his energy, conserve his energy, and use his IQ and his brains. Like, having guys run off of off-ball motions or cutting baseline, like just keeping the defense honest, because all eyes when LeBron has the ball are going to be on him. It just works out a lot better, and you can see in his assist numbers that it's been working more so for him. And moving D'Lo back to moving him to the bench, it puts the ball in LeBron's hands more, because when him and D'Lo have to share the load, obviously D'Lo isn't as productive as LeBron, and the way for D'Lo to work, he has to have the ball in his hand. Like, yes, he's a good spot up shooter, but it just gives him more opportunity when he's running bench units. So it's just been nice to see, and it's just been, like I said, I'm a Heat fan. They haven't been the best this season, so the Pistons and the Lakers are kind of keeping me going. They're keeping me optimistic. And I'm excited for how the future looks with JJ Redick as a head coach and him coaching LeBron in the twilight phases of his career. Now, to kind of end the show, this is all hypothetical. I would like to start in preference, but Giannis and the Bucks have been struggling this season. They've turned it up a little bit as of late. They keep losing, losing these close games, but Giannis has been amazing this season. He's been sensational. He's been a better jump shooter this season. He's averaging a career high in points. He's doing it all. He's been great. And they haven't been losing. They've been losing despite of his play. It has not been on him. It's the roster makeup around him. They're old, they're slow, and they don't have a lot of assets, and they're not healthy to top it all off. So it's just hard to win games like that. And like I said, this is all skeptical. Giannis has not come out and requested a trade, but I just kind of wanted to look around the league and point to some teams that I could see him heading to if things were to go south in Milwaukee. So I listed 3 teams here. Two of the teams are pretty common teams that you see when reports come out. Obviously, I didn't put the Heat here because I don't think they have a shot in landing Giannis if he is to request a trade. But the 3 teams that I put were the Thunder, the Rockets, which is a team that's been speculating a lot, and believe it or not, this is kind of a wild card, but the San Antonio Spurs. So for the Thunder, I've been kind of preaching this for the last year or two, ever since the Thunder got Chet, and especially last season. You take a look at their young players that they have and the draft compensation that they have the assets if they want to make a big splash to go and grab a guy like Giannis. And imagine pairing him up next to Chet Holmgren, next to Shea. You probably got to get rid of Dort in that move, but next to J-Dub, like, that is a dynasty waiting to happen. Like I said, and I want to keep reiterating this is all skeptical, this is all make-believe, but if it were to happen, I've been preaching this for a while. They have the assets, they have the means, and Sam Presti is a great GM, and I think if he wants to make it happen, it could happen. I think for the Thunder trade, for it to go down, because I don't think they're going to disrupt this core that they have going on right now, but for this trade to happen, it would more than likely be in like an off-season move. Like, if the Thunder completely flame out this season, like let's say they finish as a 1 seed and lose in the first round, because now they're starting to get to that point where it's championship or bust. Not championship or bust, but where expectations are sort of heightened for them. I could see a move like that happening then. Outside of that, though, like if the Thunder are making it to the Western Conference Finals this year or to the finals, I don't really see them making a big splash like that, even though it is Giannis. You err on the side of caution when you have a bunch of young stars like that, and you don't want to really disrupt the chemistry in like that locker room. And he's not old yet, but he is heading towards the later portions of his career. So he sort of kind of fits their timeline, but it's not the most incredible fit, I would say. But moving on to the Rockets, they've been linked to big star trades for a couple years now. They have been going after Kevin Durant, even in his older age. It's always cited as a dream trade target for them. And if they have to pivot, I mean, it doesn't get much better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Pairing him up next to Sengun and potentially Jalen Green and all those young pieces that they have and all the trade assets that they have, it could be something that could work. And I honestly, I love when stars move around. I love big splash trades like Cat getting moved, stuff like that out of the blue. So would I love this destination for him? No. Could I see it potentially working? Potentially. But that is another kind of name that I kind of threw out there when I was just looking around the league at where he could potentially land. And then to finish this off, I said the Spurs. And the Spurs have a lot of the same principles that the Thunder that I kind of mentioned with the Thunder. Like they have a lot of young assets. They have a young superstar that's up and coming. And Giannis, he doesn't necessarily fit their timeline perfectly because he is a lot older than Victor. But could you imagine a pairing of Victor and Giannis as your two bigs, and you bring in a guard like for the sake of like argument, like let's say it's just Chris Paul still there with them. Obviously, I don't think he'd be there by the time if this trade were to go down. But you bring in a guard like even mediocre, like I'm gonna say a good guard actually, a guy like let's say you bring in Trae Young to pair with those two. Like that is another dynasty waiting to happen. Match made in heaven per se, and it's just something very very interesting to think about. Things were to go down. Now, nothing has been stated on the Giannis front, and it's just going to be something that we're going to monitor over the season. But I hope he is the next big star to move around. I don't like the Bucks because they kind of swooped in and stole Dame from Miami, and you see how that's working out for them. So I'm not disappointed. I'm not upset for them at all, and I kind of got it out for the Trailblazers and the Bucks. So I'm not a fan of either franchise. So I'm fine with seeing them burn. I'm not gonna lie. But hopefully we see some more stars on the move as the season progresses. And these are just kind of my crazy hypotheticals for what will happen if Giannis were to be moved. But that's all I really have for today. Like I mentioned, this is going to be something that we're going to start continuing and picking up momentum as the year progresses. It's going to be a consistent segment with us. We're going to go every Monday, and you can kind of expect us any assortment of topics from NBA and NFL. And if you guys have things that you want us to talk about, or you disagree with some of the things I said, or you agree, let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Peer Review Podcast. Please make sure to share the podcast with your friends and family, as well as follow us on X at peerreview_podcast, at peerreview_pod, and on TikTok at Peer Review Podcast to stay up to date with our latest videos and episode releases. And we also personally monitor all of our accounts, and we love to hear your feedback. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Want us to cover different topics? Let us know again in the comments. Thanks again. This is the Peer Review, signing off.